Hello everyone, I'm back. It's Irma Elias, otherwise known as Squat Mom. Hope you're all doing well during these times. I've decided to cover something I've covered once before, the squat. I feel that there's so much to know about that one maneuver, the squat. Today we're going to cover how to do it. I'm probably going to do numerous sessions on how to perform the squat because I feel that it is a fundamental maneuver that we all need to learn. And I suggest, ladies, that you either buy a barbell if you don't have one, or use a stick, any kind of stick, a broom, whatever, so that you can do the squat properly. I think that there's many ways to do the squat. I've taught them all with dumbbells, but I really think that unless you do it with a barbell, you don't have to use weights. I know the barbell is about 35 pounds for a woman. Unless you use the barbell, you can't really understand the true biomechanics involved with performing a squat. So the first thing I want to say is that everyone squats differently, okay? So what I mean by that is that you may notice that when you squat, your knees stay in front of you. That's a narrow squat. Or you may notice that your knees kind of spread apart. That is called a wide squat, and that has to do with how your body is formed, how your hip joint sits in its socket. So you can easily be assessed for the type of squatter you are, whether you're narrow or whether you're wide, and you're going to want to know that so that you can avoid injury. If you're a narrow squatter, you don't want to squat wide. If you're a wide squatter, you don't want to squat narrow because you can hurt yourself, your knees and your low back. The other thing I want to talk about is learning the proper biomechanics of squatting. If you do learn the proper biomechanics of the squat, then you can keep yourself injury-free primarily, and you can perform a perfect squat. And that's the goal. We want perfect form when we're doing our workouts. We don't want to do them sloppy or haphazardly because you are using weights and you can injure your back. So this is what we're going to talk about today, is how to do the perfect squat. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, the reason why I'm not in my gym, is I want to talk about the things that you need to avoid, or faults that you need to avoid while performing the squat. So I want to emphasize that stability and mobility are the most important things when you're performing a squat. They need to be balanced. Your stability and your mobility need to be balanced so that your joints can perform a perfect range of motion. Okay, and when I say your joints, I'm not just talking about your hip joint. I'm talking about your knee joint and your ankle joint. All your joints that are involved need to have stability and mobility in order to perform a perfect squat. The way that's achieved is that by strengthening your surrounding muscles that surround the hip joint. You have your gluteus maximus, you have your gluteus medius, and unless you use your gluteus minimus, but it's the medius that probably matters the most when it comes to the squat. You're gonna get a lot of activation from the gluteus maximus, but your medius matters, and you usually think of your medius as raising your leg to the side as an abductor. Okay, so the second thing I want to say that you should avoid is that you need, first I'll tell you what to do and then tell you how to avoid it. You need your knees to track over your toes, and that's utterly important. You don't want valgus knees. You don't want your knees to track inside your toes at any point. The other thing is you need your feet to be firmly planted. So a lot of times you'll hear, your heels must be kept on the ground, and that's to keep you from balancing on the ball of your foot. But I'm going to tell you that you need to have your entire foot firmly planted. So what you're going to think about is the base of your big toe, the base of your little toe, and your heel all need to be on the ground while you're performing the squat. The next point, my fourth point of something that you need to do so that you avoid doing it incorrectly, is that you need to squat to a parallel position, meaning squatting down as if you're sitting in a chair. You're gonna want the apex of your hip joint to go lower than the tip of your patella. That's your kneecap. So, you're going to say, well, Irma, what's the apex of my hip joint? You're just going to think about the crest where your shorts or your pants fold. You want that lower than the tip of the knee joint. The next point is that you want to make sure that when you get up, you have full hip extension, that you stand up completely, okay? And that's achieved at the top of the squat. What hip extension does is it involves glute activation, and you get more than 80 to 120% of glute activation while rising, and it's called MVC, which is muscle voluntary contraction. You get most of the motion, I guess you could say, from standing or using extension during the squat. And you only get 20 to 30% of muscle voluntary contraction, 20 to 30% while you're bending down or while you're squatting. So when you're coming up, what you're doing is a concentric move. And when you're going down, you're doing an eccentric move. So most of the strength is coming up from that squat, okay? So make sure that you come up and stand erect. You have full hip extension, very important. Finally, you have to make sure that your lumbar spine is extended and it's not lost. You don't want to lose, you don't want to curve your back or flex your back. You want to keep a neutral spine. And then especially important, and people talk about this all the time, and if you're confused about it, I'll explain. You don't want any rounding or flexion of the low back while doing the squat at the bottom, okay? So what that's called is a butt wink. The way to think about it is that you're squatting and your back is extended, but when you go to the bottom and you continue to go past a good point where the apex of your hip joint is below the tip of the patella. When you go below that point, you start to kind of bounce and bend. Your butt literally flexes. Your lumbars are flexing, and that's called a butt wink. Okay, that dropping down. You don't want to go down too far, and you don't want to curve in. You don't want to do that. Some of us have difficulty, like myself, getting the apex of my hip joint below my knees. So if you can't achieve that, that's okay. You just have to think about like sitting in a chair. You want to at least be parallel, like you're going to sit in a chair. With continued squatting, you should be able to achieve, 95% of us can achieve getting your butt lower than your knees. So this is something that comes with time. You have to work on your flexibility, and you have to do your stretches and make sure you're all warmed up before you start squatting. That's it for now, and I will go to my gym and I will demonstrate the squat for you. think first we should discuss the type of equipment you might consider owning or purchasing for the squat. I think that you would want to use a hard, flat-soled shoe, like I'm demonstrating here. You don't have to buy, name brand shoes or the most expensive shoes. You can buy at minimum Converse. They're flat and hard, and the Chuck Taylor shoes are probably the best bet or the least expensive pair you can buy. If you want to invest more money into shoes, you can use or purchase Olympic weightlifting shoes or the squat shoe. That would be a lot more money, but either way, you want to use a hard, flat-soled shoe. The second piece of equipment that I highly recommend you purchase or buy are knee sleeves, like the ones I'm demonstrating here for you. These are the ones I own. As opposed to wrapping the knees. The advantages of knee sleeves is that they are easy to get on and off, and they provide consistent pressure throughout your knee joints all the time. They keep your knee joint warm, and they provide protection. So the third piece of equipment I highly recommend you invest in is a weight belt or a buckle belt made of stiff leather. This belt will give you something for your abdominal core to brace against. It protects your lower back and it keeps you upright during a squat. You'll get more core activation if you invest in a very good thick belt. The belt gives your body something to push out against, and it also allows you to use more weight and thus get more core activation. Finally, the fourth piece of equipment I think is really important to invest in are wrist wraps. There's various different types of wrist wraps. I'm just showing you what I have, but I know there's other different types of wrist wraps. I think wrapping your wrists is really important while doing the squat, especially when you're doing a low bar squat. If you wrap your wrists, it prevents elbow and wrist pain when squatting in the low bar position. It keeps your wrist straighter. Make sure to wrap above and below the wrist joint. This is very important, and it provides more support and keeps them in a better position for the squat. Now for the execution of the squat. The first thing I want you to do is take in a deep breath. This helps with maintaining spine neutrality during your squat. You've always been told, breathe in on the way down, breathe out on the way up. This is completely wrong. You will generate your most force by holding your breath. Think about bracing by pushing out your abdominal wall as much as you can. Much as you would if you were going to receive a punch to the stomach. It's the same sort of concept. So the benefits are your abdominal wall stabilizes your back during a squat. You have to make sure your back is neutral by bracing your back, and it keeps you more upright in the squat. Now I'm going to demonstrate the back squat for you. The first thing you're going to do is walk up to the bar, put full grip on the bar, unrack the bar. Take 3 steps back, 2 steps, then the third is for stabilization. Shoulder width stance. The bar rests on your upper back. Your elbows are pointed back. You take a deep breath and hold it. Don't forget to brace your back. Your hips are going to descend back and down. Hips descend lower than the knees. The apex of the hip descends lower than the tip of the patella. Your lumbar curve is maintained and your heels remain planted. The base of the big toe, the base of the baby toe, and your heel all remain flat on the floor. Your knees are in line with your toes, and you're complete at full extension. I'm demonstrating the low bar back squat. The clear advantage of the low bar back squat is that because your back is more at an incline, you're able to carry more weight. A lot of people love the low bar back squat because they can lift more weight. You might consider that, but all the rules are the same that I've described for the high bars back squat. Okay, to conclude today's lesson, what I did was I gave you an overview of the squat. And this is something that I'm going to do again and again. So don't worry if you didn't get all of the points today, because I'm going to add more next time. I promise you. You'll learn the squat so thoroughly, you'll know it like the back of your hand. I'm a squat mom. That's what I do. I squat, and I think it is the most fundamental exercise that you will learn on my channel. So hopefully you all like the channel, you like the station today, you like what you saw. If you do like it, I'm asking you to please smash that like button. And for all of you that have never seen me before or are new to my station, I'm hoping that you will subscribe so that I can help all of you, men and women, not just ladies, men and women, reverse the aging process. I'm teaching you different modalities, different things that will help you turn back the clock. That's what this station is about. That's what I'm teaching. If you do like me, please subscribe, and you guys have a wonderful day.